Hello and welcome to Metro AV Tech Tips. I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
And for obvious reasons, we are not in the same place.
That's right.
Somebody in this crew came back from Cedia with the vid.
Except for me. Except for me. Yep. So this is where it's at. We are whip fight, and actually this kind of worked out because I am also moving. So I was vaccinated, so my symptoms were super small. Everyone else is fine in the family. We're in the midst of a move, so this actually kind of worked out for everybody a little bit. But I knew that my the viewers and the people watching and whatnot were important to me, so I wanted to make sure that we made it live. So here we are.
And to the best of my knowledge, we are in fact live, and I just lost you.
You lost me. Did you lose me entirely?
No, but there is definitely a lip sync issue between what you say and what I say.
Okay. If the chat would let us know if that's still happening for everybody or if it's just Brent, because if I remember correctly, I think last time it happened to you as well. So I'm going to keep going, but I'm going to lead us into today's topic. So Brent, today we are talking about what to do when you have a single source and you're needing to distribute it out to multiple displays.
Now, are we talking 1.4, 2.0, or 2.1?
Yes. All of it. So talking about a little bit of everything. We're talking about the 1.4, maybe even a mixture of 1.4, 2.0, and 2.1. We're talking about what it needs to, what needs to happen in order to make all of it, work on multiple, different types of displays, and make everything happy with that run. So
before we get into that, go through your usual pre-tech tips spiel.
Sure.
Facebook and all that sort of stuff.
Yep. So like, share, subscribe this video if what we're talking about is helpful to you, or even if it's not, we would appreciate that. Lets us know that we're doing the right thing. As always, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram. I think we even have a Twitter account. You can also find us at AV Tech Tips on Instagram. So if you have any pictures that you want to send us of what you're working on, let us see it. We're happy to take a look at it. We've got Michael on the chat as well. Michael is saying, hope I'm fully recovered. How was the expo and was it worth it? Yes, 100%. I can actually say 100%. I was actually looking forward to seeing you there, Michael. I was sad to hear that you weren't able to make it. But it was definitely worth it. I know in the project that I was working on in the conference room, it was a huge hit. And Brent was actually out on the floor. Brent, how was it for you? Did you have a decent showing and everything on your side?
The first day was your typical second day.
Mm-hmm.
As far as traffic and people coming in. The second day was your typical last day. The last day was crickets. Yeah.
It was good though overall.
It's funny for us because we wound up being legitimately the big dog at the show.
Yeah.
Because we had the largest booth there. We had more crates than anybody at trim out time.
That's right. Yeah, we won the unofficial award for the most crates. Yeah. Let's see what.
It's very odd for us because you got Sony and Crestron and Snap and all these other companies that are all much bigger than us booth wise.
Yeah, exactly.
It was strange. I think they claim 1,400 people attended. My guess was 1,000.
Yeah.
It worked out well, and it was odd because you and I and Kevin went out to dinner frequently and saw virtually nobody.
Yeah, I mean, normally you run into multiple people. I mean, it was my first Cedia, and probably wasn't the best experience of Cedia to see that. But it was, yeah, we had a good time. That's for sure. Michael's.
I followed Cedia up with the TV shootout in New York this past weekend.
Yeah, how did that go, by the way?
Well, obviously constrained because of COVID.
Right.
New York's a little different when you're from Florida. A COVID vaccination card was required to get in anywhere. And when I say anywhere, I mean AMC theaters, all the restaurants, the hotel.
Yeah.
Very strict about it. At the actual TV shootout, normally we have a lot of press and people there to watch the shootout. This year it was just the judges and a little bit of press, and that was it. So it was very quiet, which is odd for the TV shootout. I've done this, I think, 7 years now. But it was a fun show. Sony won on the flat panels with a bigger spread than previously. And it's funny because we used to see it being LG and then Sony kind of. And now
they've surpassed it.
It's tilted the other way. But supposedly LG's, I saw on a press release this morning, has something new coming. So
that'd be nice to see.
Keen to see.
Yeah.
Monday was the ultra short throw shootout,
which is kind of an interesting thing, right? Like normally, for me, anyways, ultra short throws are still at least when I was still doing installations, full time. Ultra short throw was kind of an interesting idea and a possibility for the larger, displays.
The people that were represented in this class, Hisense, and LG, are not really selling themselves as a projection product, but as a low-profile TV.
That's interesting.
And
yeah.
In fact, Hisense only sells the projector with a screen.
Right. Yeah, you have to use their screen with it. Yeah. So which is interesting.
It does require some changes. And I'm certainly not going to say the judges are all going to run out and buy one.
No, I mean, you're not comparing short throw projectors to flat panel.
Had the short throw projection been done prior to the flat panel competition, it might have, they might have been less
picky.
Really? Yes, because you just watched two of the greatest OLED panels for 12 hours the previous day.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at minute pixel structure, color clarity, color detail, color uniformity, panel uniformity, all things that all projectors do not excel at.
Yeah. Now, are we allowed to
picture?
Are we allowed to talk about the cabling that was used at these TV shootouts?
There, so one would assume that the cabling was done by Metra AV, and they would be correct.
Right.
Which we've done for the last 7 years. It's just a matter we can show up, plug it in, and stuff just works.
Yeah.
Which for this is critical because they don't get a lot of time in setup because it's in a semi-public venue. So, you got finite amount of hours to do things.
Right.
New was an absolute blast. Ate well. Brought back 27 pounds of bagels.
Oh. And I was supposed to get one of those bagels, and I'm not there right now to get one of them.
What?
You gave it away, didn't you?
A zero atom bagel policy. Were you able to be here today for the broadcast? You'd have a bagel. But all that being said, it was a good show. I enjoyed it. One of these days, I got to drag you up there because first off, it's your old home state.
Yep.
And weather was incredible, but I learn a lot by watching the ISF guys and talking with the manufacturers that were there. There was a guy from Hisense, a guy from Sony. The LG people weren't there this year, which I thought was a lot. They normally are, but they give me a tremendous amount of insight and honest help with what we're doing to make our products better. Right.
Now, Michael's asking, what was the playback source?
There were several. They had the usual Oppo. They were using the Stacy, what's Stacy's last name? Stearns and Munsell disc. By the way, I brought back 2 extra copies for us.
Oh, good. Thank you. We needed those.
They had some incredible 8K content for the 8K testing.
Yep.
And 4K content from the guy that does all the video for Apple and a few others was there as one of the judges. And, of course, the Kingsman test, which we've done for 7 years, scenes out of that because everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And look at the black levels and look at artifacts. It's a really good test. And Monday during the short throw, it's like, how about the audio? Because this is a TV.
Yeah, technically.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's being sold.
Yep.
Surprisingly, and it's funny because it's like, yeah, how about the audio?
Yeah, exactly.
It was reasonably decent. You know, none of the flat panels now at that level
Yeah.
have great audio.
Not for as small as they are.
Real thin.
Yeah.
And the speakers typically are down firing, so the only thing they've got is the wall to help them.
Well, and even the ones that use the panel itself as the membrane for that, it's yeah, they stopped doing that. They're not doing that anymore within. Okay. Michael's asking, how do they play the native 8K content?
On USB sticks directly on the panel.
Directly on the panel. Okay. Well, that's not bad. That's
the distribution system was done by AV Pro, and their 8K did not make it through test. Their prototype 8K. Let me quantify that prototype. It's not
right.
Failed in anything. This is a handmade prototype. Was not quite ready for the test they wanted it to be, and we were fully prepped for it with the cables.
Yeah. Now this was the AV Pro or the Meridio guys that were doing that one?
AV Pro.
AV Pro. Okay.
So also had their new 8K generator, which just looks just like their old 4K generator.
Yeah. Which in fact we used that at our CEDIA booth, did we not?
We did.
Yeah. So thanks again to the Meridio guys for their 8K generator on that one. Okay.
Turn my phone off this show.
Me too. Mine was beeping too. Okay. So let's get into it, Brent. Let's talk about single source video distribution.
Okay, so the first question I have to ask is A, what is your source?
Right.
B, what displays do you have? C, how far they are from where your source is.
Right.
This will determine which way you're going. Now, if it's a 1080p source, life gets a whole lot simpler.
Mm-hmm.
We can do it with any number of extenders. We can do it through basic splitters, no problem. The splitters have been out for years, and we know how to handle it. We can go 300 feet, 350 feet, 120 meters, 150 meters, excuse me.
At 1080p, yeah.
No problem. Or we can do it on coax with SDI coming out of a splitter.
Yeah.
For bars, churches, places that are currently running the standard 1080p format, which is still a valid format.
Look, 1080p is still a great looking picture. It's still, and when you're looking at it, for me, that was the biggest jump in picture quality that we have ever made. Even the jump from 1080p to 4K or 4K to 8K, or even the frame rate upgrade that we got. The 1080p image is still a fantastic picture. And
it still is, because remember, we had 480p, but mostly what we really had was 480.
Exactly.
325i.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
it was a big change in the early days.
Yeah. So if we're talking 1080p for, all the way through 1080p source, 1080p displays on all of the displays, it's super easy right now, right? We just put it in.
There's very few 720s left. So we're going to assume that if you have a 1080p display or source, and they purchased any of the displays in the last 15 years, it's probably 1080.
Right.
Now, at this point, there's 1x2, 1x4, 1x8, 1x16 options that also will do a little bit of negotiation. And in some cases, there's even splitters that offer scaling. So if you do throw a 720p set in, you're not out of the water.
Right.
The only thing that really matters, honestly, is going to be audio.
Yep.
And the default should just be stereo, because not all the sets are going to take Dolby Digital.
Yeah, and if you're doing that many TVs, it's very rare that you're going to have any kind of surround sound set up in there anyways. It's all going to be stereo, background sound.
Church or a bar or a school.
Right.
Even then, lip syncing, when you have multiple TV brands, lip syncing just doesn't happen.
Right.
In fact, when we were running the Matrix on the 4K TV test, a Samsung, LG, Sony, and a Hisense. The new dual layer nano cell or something like that. None of those four sets synced up the same time as the other ones.
Right.
So if you're going to do distributed audio and you've got multiple brands, it's not going to be the same anyway. So the smartest thing to do is either take an analog out of the source if you have one, or if you don't, go into like one of our switches with the audio breakout, then
Right. Right.
and then the assumption is you're just kind of listening to the audio as background to the game or whatever it is you're watching.
Right. Yeah. Do the audio at the source, or if you need to break out the audio, use an audio breakout or the audio breakout switch that we have. That's going to be the easiest way to get the audio, for your setups. You don't have to worry
Do it,
about.
of course, because you're
Yeah.
never going to match more than one display, even if all the displays are the same size and the same brand and the same model number.
Yep.
Does not work.
Yeah.
A good example: cable boxes. We both own them. We both hate them.
Yep.
At one point, we had two of the Scientific Atlanta 8300s in my house. Fed off the exact same coax, direct feeding two TVs off of
Yeah.
an analog matrix component. Audio is analog, video is component.
Yep.
TVs were half a second apart on the two cable boxes.
Yep.
Same identical cable box, half a second apart.
Right.
Incredibly annoying.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Super annoying. I fully understand that. But your best option for that is, especially if you're doing just one to many setup, take the audio from the source if you can, if it has an audio output, or put in an audio breakout.
It's just an ancillary portion of what you're doing anyway.
Right.
So 1080p is pretty straightforward, and we offer. Here's my shell moment: a 1.2, 1.4, 1.8, and 1.16
Mm-hmm.
distribution. All support 1080p with no problem.
Michael's saying the old 8300 was well known for HDMI issues with AVRs.
Yes,
He says, trust me, I was there. I'm that old.
it was. I used to refer to the trifecta of evil as an 8300, a Pioneer AVR, and a Samsung display. If you had that particular combination, GFL.
Yep. JFL. That was this. Not to rag on Scientific Atlanta for anything, or Atlantic. What was it, Atlanta or Atlantic? Scientific Atlanta. I don't remember. Atlanta. Not to rag on them, because honestly, their cable boxes were bulletproof in some cases, because people would beat the crap out of them and use them, have them set up incorrectly, put them inside of a cabinet, no airflow whatsoever, and those suckers still kept going.
Meant to last, not to look good.
Exactly, yeah. And they definitely did not look good. They were just
like me.
yeah, there you go. So now here's the thing. If you have a 1080p source, it's also pretty simple for distributing that 1080p source to pretty much anything else. Like if you have a 4K TV, even now going into 8K TV, because those are all designed to be backwards compatible. They're able to go down. In theory, barring any kind of issues with the chipset.
If you have a 1080p source,
mm-hmm.
and it's your only source, and you're going to 4K or 8K TVs, do 1080p distribution. Because as soon as you put in an HDMI 2.0 distribution device, unless it has built-in scaling and EDID management, you're asking for trouble.
Right.
Because the EDID in one piece will negotiate but not pass backwards properly, unless you have proper EDID management. And boy, this is an odd show because I'm going to shill again for a second. Any of our splitters that have the SPL suffix, SPL5 suffix,
5, yeah, 5.
Scaling and EDID management built in them. So you can have a 4K, 1080p, and a 720 display all on anything from 480 up to 4K sources.
Right.
And that, again, we're back to all that plays into it. If it's 1080p, 1080p.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a big fan of SDI.
SDI is great. We have an SDI extender. There are SDI distribution systems out there.
There are 1 in, 4 out, 8 out, and 16 out.
They even have, not even so much SDI. What was that?
Not us, but they certainly exist.
They exist. There's also RF modulation systems out there that can run 1080p.
With the MB3.
Mm-hmm.
Which worked excellent if you're doing 1080p or less.
Right.
At least for us, because our clients quickly moved to 4K, the transition was very short. The M3B became, for us, not a viable product. But for the pro side, it still was. and had we been where we are moving into the pro side 4 years ago, 3 years ago,
Right.
it might have been a different thing, but it wasn't.
Right. Randall Muncie's asking, you're a little bit lower in audio. Randall, I lowered my audio. Let me know if that's any better. See if that equals out a little bit. We're not in our normal setup, obviously.
I'm low in audio?
You're low in audio, exactly.
Let's
there
move
you
forward.
go. Oh, we're getting kind of intimate now on this one. I don't know if I want to say that.
I don't know. You can back up. So let's take it a step further.
Sure.
We're going to distribute an Apple TV, a Roku, or DirecTV or cable box that has 4K capability.
Now, still one source. Still one.
Source.
It's just one of those, but it has 4K.
Now, when you're looking at cable boxes in DirecTV, what is 4K?
It's 4K.
That's exactly what it is. It actually typically falls under the 1.4 domain.
Right.
So you still need a good splitter, and you still need a splitter that recognizes the EDID commands and management of it.
Mm-hmm.
So at least from us, you're still in an SPL5 domain to be safe.
Yes. Yeah. Put it on SPL5 because it's going to handle, because it handles all of the EDID information. It handles all of the scaling and everything, puts it exactly where it needs to be.
Now, how are we going to get from there to the TV?
So that's it. Are we close to the TVs? Are all the TVs kind of in one area where we can run some, an HDMI cable that's no more than 10 meters to each one of the TVs?
Probably not.
No, probably not. So how do we get it there? So, we were saying before, we've got our 120 meter or 150 meter extender, and then for 1080p. Now with 4K, luckily that extender still does 4K.
20 meters.
At 120 meters.
Plus
Now,
fiber cables.
Now, exactly. The AOC, our Velox AOC, we have some install bay AOC. We also have an HDMI over fiber extender that uses like bulk fiber. So what are you doing here, dog? Come here. We can show everybody here.
What is the beeping I keep hearing? Is you guys got a smoke detector going off?
Yeah, you probably hear the smoke detector going off. This is one of my fur babies. This is my Maggie. It's a good puppy.
Well, that right there just raised the subscriber count of our channel.
I bet it did. We need to do that more often.
I'm going to lower the subscriber count.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, you're getting in close, aren't you now? All right, dogs, go on. Okay. There you go. So the
at breaking the 10 gig barrier.
Yes.
Because, so we have a cable box or DirecTV, but today they're under the 10 gig barrier, but that could change. Firmware updates could change that.
Right.
So at that point, you can still use the SPL5 distribution hub.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to make sure that whatever you're doing downstream, whether it's a cable or an extender, can support that bandwidth. And you really want to be able to support up to 18.
Right. Right. Now, and using that SPL5, again, let's actually talk about this a little bit, because actually what we might need to do is on Friday, I know I'll be out on Friday still for this, but we might need to do a video on interesting ways of using the SPL5 splitters, because one of the ways that you can use the SPL5 in a situation like that, where you have a TV, you have an HDMI cable that is, or the TV is capable of 4K, but the cable going to it is either too long or it can't support the bandwidth required for the 4K video signal. But you have a TV that's closer, that's also looking at it, that maybe is not a 4K. Well, there's that. But what you could also do is with the SPL5, you can copy the EDID of the closer TV. So if it's a 1080p TV, you can copy the EDID of the 1080p TV and use that EDID information as the output of all of the TVs.
True, but if you have a 4K source and you have a 4K TV,
right,
and you're providing a 4K transmission, you're going to have an unhappy client.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the other case, use that.
Use the GA1
on a passive cable.
On a passive cable, or if you're running it in a new installation, either a Cat 6 and the 120 series extender or fiber cable.
Right. Yeah, either bulk fiber or the AOC.
Going forward, my assumption is this. you're pulling a fiber cable and a Cat6 to every location, if not that and a coax.
Yeah.
Right now, coax is not supporting this because nobody's done the work.
Right.
12G coax exists. It doesn't properly support HDR because it's not intended to.
No.
But the chipsets possibly could change, and I would not want to leave out the possibility of doing coax. And for nothing else, coax is a great way to get distributed our audio back from the TV.
Yeah, it's a piece of copper, right? It gives you some kind of connection, and you can use it. You can get, kind of interesting with it and use it in different ways to make it work right. So
we've talked about 1080p.
Yep.
We've talked about 2.0.
Yes.
18 gig 4K. And
Right.
you mentioned briefly if you have a combination of both. Now,
Yes.
go a little deeper into both having a 4K and a 1080p simultaneous displays off a single source. In the past, with the splitters, you were pretty much screwed.
Yeah. Well,
Bite me in the eye. Because whatever the
Yeah.
high resolution common between the sets was, which was the highest resolution of the lowest resolution set,
right.
that's what everybody did because it was one EDID back to the source.
Yeah.
But with EDID management and scaling built into splitters, tell us how that can help us, Adam.
Well, in that case, what you can do is you can have a 4K. You can have a 4K display that's capable of all the big stuff. HDR. 444. All the big stuff. And you can have a source with media on that source that's able to play at 4K, HDR, all that kind of good stuff, and still have a 1080p display using like the SPL5, where it does the scaling for you. It drops the metadata for HDR, and it downscales the resolution down to the 1080p and plays it. And I will say this: when we tested it in our lab with a couple different brands of TVs, they played back perfectly and instantly and at the same rate. They were all in sync. It was amazing.
I want you to call your wife, have her get the hammer and beat that smoke detector.
I know. Is it still going? So with the 1080p and 4K, if you have a 4K source, you can do it pretty easily. You use the SPL5, it does all of the stuff for you and gets everything going. If you have a 1080p source, again, it's pretty easy, and it doesn't really matter what you're using for the distribution. So long as it does 1080p, you're usually going to be okay, unless you run into an issue where it uses the wrong chipset. Which, if it's a 1080p source, not to where it's set to 1080p, but where it's an actual 1080p source. Brent, what happens when you have a 4K Apple TV, but you have it set to 1080p?
Well, if you have a 4K display but a 1080p AVR, no picture, because it still overrides. It can create oh, that hurt. There's a TV under this counter, and I whacked it with my shoe. I'm not normally standing in the middle.
Not that close either.
Oh, that hurt. I'm going to have you stand here next time.
Yeah.
So have a 4K display and a 4K source and a 1080p thing in the middle.
Yep.
It can create much havoc. Or if you have a 4K TV or 1080p TV and a 4K AVR and a 4K source. We take this call at least twice a week.
At least twice a week. And it's very common.
AVR tells the source, hey, I'm 4K, life is good. It doesn't fully negotiate all the way forward to the display, which it is supposed to do.
It's supposed to. But just like CEC, EDID information passes all the way through. Unless that device in the middle is capturing the information from the TV and stopping it and not passing it through to the source device, it's going to get through, which means that if it's a 1080p or 4K TV, but the AVR is 1080p,
now,
you're going to run into an issue.
Interesting use of the scaling splitter.
Right.
Because you take the scaling splitter, you learn the EDID from the TV.
Yes.
And then you put that between the source and the AVR.
Yes.
And then everything works.
Well, and what you would do actually in that case is you take the TV, you copy the EDID of the TV, and have the TV sent back, or have that be the EDID that gets sent back to the source, and you go out of the splitter to the AVR, and then that handles all of that part. So you're using the splitter as a splitter. One goes out to the TV, and one goes to the AVR.
You don't need to do that. If you can go still forward through the AVR.
So the SPL5 doesn't. It will learn the EDID. However, as soon as you unplug the TV from that piece, it loses that EDID information.
Okay.
So it has to be plugged into it.
So you still have to use the dual output.
Correct. Yeah. But the thing is that it's there. It's all available. It's all there to where you can. And in most cases, the AVR is right there by the splitter, anyways. So it's easy to have that split happening, and you just do that, or you take the output of the AVR and put it between put the splitter on the output of the AVR. Then you worry about sending it off to the TV, and you're not setting. What you're doing is you're not telling the TV or you're not telling the AVR or the splitter to copy the EDID of the TV. Instead, you're going to use the built-in canned EDID information that the splitter has on its own to then tell the AVR, hey, you're connected to a basic 1080p or a basic 4K TV instead of this one that does all this extra stuff.
Now, you can actually, using the splitter, do the exact opposite. So if you have a 4K TV, a 4K source, and a non-4K AVR,
right,
then you can use the splitter in the inversion, meaning you go into the splitter from the source, and we'll still see the 1080p content, and still 1080p flags from the AVR for one output, and the 4K flags for the other output. So you can keep the 4K going to the TV.
Right.
Or you put in the switch that has the audio breakout.
Right.
AVR. And we'll talk about this real quick because we saw the email this morning from our one of our sales guys who saw the new Sound United D&M 8K switch.
Yes.
And he says, well, will it work on any AVR? No.
No.
Because it's meant to go off specific units that have eARC input and are firmware upgradable to CEC command. They've added additional input command strings for certain AVRs. So instead of having just 6 inputs, now they have 9.
Right. Now, and what they're doing is this is different than their fix for the Xbox Series X and the NVIDIA graphics cards.
It has been 3 8K inputs on it, and one not 8K input that's also eARC. So that input goes back to the output of the AVR to its standard output with eARC return for all the 4K sources on the AVR. So let's say you've got 6 or 7 sources, whatever that AVR has. I honestly don't remember. But now there's additional string commands to support the extra 3 inputs that go out over the HDMI cable to the switch, and then the switch just eARCs the data back for the Atmos. It's a great solution.
It is.
Replacing a year or 2-year-old AVR. Right.
Well, and it's good for them right now also because that's something that they can actually build right now.
Yes.
And not have to worry about not having the chip shortage, interfere with it as much.
Because they're not
minimizes it.
To do the audio interface for the amplifier channel.
So good on them for doing that. D&M, both Denon and Marantz, so of course they're owned by the same company. Check their stuff out. It's actually, if I remember correctly, it was a fairly inexpensive upgrade compared to
buying a new AVR.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. So definitely check them out if you're looking at doing an upgrade for one of your clients or an upgrade for yourself, and you're tired of waiting for AVRs to come into stock because they're still not in stock. And we just talked with the JVC with Patrick. Help me out.
You can do it. Siebert.
Yep. Patrick Siebert. We just talked with Patrick Siebert anyways on the show even, and we're still running into issues with chip shortages and everything else. So
talking to manufacturers at the TV shootout, nothing's changed.
No.
DM shut down 75% of their manufacturing capability last week.
Yeah.
This is not ending in the near future.
No,
and
it's not.
Part of it. It's not the expensive chips that are the problem.
Right.
It's the 19-cent power conversion chips that nobody can get. It's not the the high dollar thing. However, that 19-cent chip is now $4 or $5 or $6.
Yeah.
So it does, it's like, oh, it's only $6. No, it's 19 cents.
Yes.
Dollars. That changes the build of the product dramatically because it's not just a single chip in a build.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So now I want to distribute 2.1.
Yes.
How am I going to do that?
Well, you're going to call up our buddies over at Meridio and well, no, okay, but let's back up a little bit. If you're going to call up either the guys over at Avery Pro currently. I think Brent, you have some things you're working on, and they're.
Be honest, but like everybody else, can I build? As you know from your projects.
Yes.
You've had a project complete for 18 months.
Yes.
Do I have a product to sell yet?
No.
No.
Yeah.
And how long has it been finished?
It's yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So right now, to be honest, there's not a huge need for distributing and splitting 2.1 content because the only content out there is PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC graphics cards.
The assumption currently, and having discussed with a number of people over the past weekend, is Kaleidoscape will come out with an 8K solution, but it'll be a long download for a movie.
Right.
And then there'll be streaming sources, within Sony and Samsung and LG and Hisense and TCL and whoever else. So do we have to worry about distributing to multiple locations 8K yet? No. However, do we have to worry about getting 8K over 2 meters to a projection system or remote flat panel in the theater environment? Yes, we do. And by the way, just for what it's worth, when you look at a 4K TV, say 65 inches, and you look at an 8K TV, 65 inches, on the same content, rendered at 4K and at 8K, there is a perceivable absolute difference.
Yeah.
Is it the change we saw from 325 to 1080p? No. But honestly, we weren't as jaded then either.
True.
We saw that as like, oh my God.
Well, we didn't think we could get better, right? We thought that that what we had was what we had. So
right. And all of this. So every iteration does get better. Now, and 8K sets, as everybody knows, are pricey at the moment, but so was 4K when it came out. So was 1080p when it came out.
Right.
I remember selling a simple 385 JVC 27-inch countertop TV with PIP, and 86 was $1,250.
Yes.
Now, in 86, $1,250 was a whole lot more money than $1,250 now.
Right.
It made a whole lot less.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, not at that point. That was before me. Security Vlogger is asking splitting for CCTV distribution. So, I was going to say, you want to take this one?
As long as you got one of these.
Oh, there you go.
Which is the EDIDB blocker. And here's why that's important. When you look at NVRs, DVRs, video surveillance packages, basically the video driver board of that is a Linux-based board. And it's meant to see a single EDID display to tell it, okay, I'm this resolution, I'm this color depth, I'm whatever. And when you go into distribution of any kind, whether it's splitters, even with built-in scaling, or matrices, anything other than RF,
yes,
it can get very messy. You wind up with all sorts of picture shifts, color changes, or just nothing. However, none of these devices require EDID, but they see EDID. So if you put the EDID blocker on that, the device then effectively becomes its own device. It doesn't see the display. So whatever you see is what it will be.
Now, what I can say this is that most devices don't require EDID. However, they do require HD. They'll still see it. Now, they do require HDCP. And I'm saying, well, hold on. What I'm saying is not NVRs or surveillance equipment. I'm talking about all sources in general.
Cannot use this on anything but security devices.
Right.
Do not put it on your Windows 10 machine. Do not put it on your Apple iMac. Do not put it on your Blu-ray player, gaming console, cable box, or satellite receiver. Because you know what kind of picture you're going to get?
480. None or 480. We ran into that with the Xbox Series X.
One of the devices, it was the Xbox.
Yep.
The Xbox Series X dropped down to 480, and boy, did it look bad.
Oh, it was bad. It was terrible. We were going. We had the 8K TV set up behind where you're standing. We had the Xbox Series X plugged in with like a 2-meter HDMI cable. Had great 4K 120 picture, and everything was going amazing. And we thought, you know what? Let's break it. Let's screw around with this and see what we can do with it. So we threw on the EDID blocker to see what would happen,
and it worked.
It worked. We got picture, but we got picture all the way down to 480p. Is what the TV actually locked onto, because the Xbox, it went into its like safe mode where it at least it was putting out some kind of picture, but it wasn't putting out anything that was usable for today's games and movies and whatever else that's going on.
Watched 4K 120.
Yeah.
Man, was it bad.
Oh, it was bad. It was really bad. And then the TV tried to then expand it to fill in the space, which made it even worse. And so it was just bad overall. So Randall's saying, let's see what he says. He says, we will need an 8K multi-point distribution eventually in retail stores for video walls.
You will.
Presuming that we'll have cooperation from SoC manufacturers so we can make a reliable 8K source. Yes.
Not that I know anything about this, but you will see it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's coming. You just keep an eye on us. Of course, we're always working on new things, new and better things for HDMI and HDMI distribution, and getting the picture there and giving you guys solutions out in the field. But yeah, you will start seeing this a lot. You'll start seeing it in like, the McDonald's store, restaurants and stuff where they have the TVs on the wall. Yep. And you'll see it in many different locations of like airports. You'll see it in big venues or where they have like expos and whatnot. You'll see the large, high resolution displays that we need to get picture to them. Now, we're seeing things go from a video distribution to a network distribution system where the display itself is still rendering the picture. It's just getting the information over the network. But we are still seeing a lot of devices that are requiring an HDMI connection. 4K is still a huge thing to distribute. I don't think that's going to change as we go into 8K resolution requirements and 8K TVs or just displays that are going into those locations. I think we are still going to see that. And to be honest, the same problems that we've dealt with in 4K and 1080p, you're going to run into with 8K.
With NAB coming up next month in Vegas, I'd hope to go there and see, because networks deal with the same thing internally.
Yeah.
I'd hope to see what they were doing, but NAB was canceled today.
I was just going to say, I think Michael was saying that, yep, there it is. Michael was saying NAB announced today that they canceled their big show. So that was the NAB. Is that the Builders show?
No, that's National Home Builders Association, NHBA, National Association of Broadcasters.
Gotcha.
That's where they go and look at all the new 8K cameras, the mixing gear, but also distribution within the studios, how they're getting stuff around inside.
Which they're still using SDI, aren't they?
Well, Bob and I did the NBC studios because they used M3B during the presidential debates because it was fast, simple, and easy for getting everything around to the local monitors.
Right.
1080p, but for what they needed it for, it was perfect.
Right.
When we visited the guy up there in charge, he invited us in and said, let me give you a tour. And they were changing over from the old analog days to fully network-based. And wow.
Yeah.
First off, it's like walking in a basement of antique audio gear for the old stuff and still being used. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then walking into the new IP suite. Oh.
Yep.
I was walking out of there fuller pants.
So, you get the experience of the awesome old school equipment, but then you also have awesome new school equipment, right?
Yeah. So, for me, was geeking out at both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Plus, you were on what you said, it was NBC or CBS, or
I think it was NBC.
You were on the set with a lot of these things. That was Price is Right, wasn't it?
No, that was out in LA. That wasn't NBC. That was LA.
Okay.
This was New York, and this was the back end of it. They put us on. They took us to 2 of the sets, which are not near as exciting as you tend to think of them as being. You because you did pro stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of the magic disappears when you see what's actually done.
Yeah. Well, it's like this. If the viewers could see the lab from any other angle other than what we give them from the camera, they would. There's a reason that the camera is always facing one direction. So Brent, what's the secret then? What is the secret to video distribution from one source? What's the secret sauce? What's the thing to do?
Put in an active fiber cable, preferably an 8K, because that is the future.
Right.
And Cat 6 or Cat 6A cable, and a coax just to cover your hiney. And with that, you can pretty much do anything you need to do, whether it's single to multi-point, matrix, control, data, audio return.
Yep.
And it's simple. It's not that expensive to do.
Nope.
You've got to, and let's say for some reason the fiber becomes obsolete. And I mean, you say for some reason, but look at where we are. If somebody put in a 15-meter HDMI cable in 2007,
yep,
it's not going to support 4K without a GA1.
Right.
And at 15 meters, even with the GA2, it's not going to 48. Just
right.
Much loss.
Right.
So if you put in an 8K fiber, you're good for now and for several years to come. But then you just cut the ends off and terminate with whatever the terminal du jour is.
Yep.
And put an extender on it.
Yep.
Plus, you got extra fibers.
Yeah.
And if you got a Cat 6 or Cat 6A there, and Cat 6A is starting to become more of an SOP, a little bit of practice on the terminations, but they're eminently doable. In fact, our Cat 6A terminal is easier to use than the standard terminal once you understand how it functions.
Yeah.
And you and I did a great video on that, on terminating.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Well, it was either I
do it.
Was that me or was that Stuart? I think Stuart did that.
That was. I know. I did the. I did the handwork and some of the handwork.
Yeah, you were the hand model for that one.
And the voiceover, I think, or did Stuart do the voiceover?
I don't remember. We'll have to go back and look at it.
It can be done because this arthritic old man did it, and it was a whole lot easier than a standard terminal.
Right. So, well,
just not.
So it sounds like the secret sauce is just connections, making sure that you give yourself enough connections to where you have some way of getting the signal where you need it to go. And then from there, you'll find a device to split it and send it, right? I mean, it's going to be there.
Next week, we're going to talk about this same situation, but we're going to apply matrixing to it and how to deal with multiple formats and possibly legacy products that are already on the job.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we'll talk about
and
that.
With any luck, you'll be back.
Yeah, with any luck, I should be back next week. I go back in for another COVID test. I'm vaccinated, so it's not so much that I couldn't catch it. It's just my symptoms have been lessened, which I can say that I had a very, very slight cough when I got home or when they sent me home. It was not anything other than that. And then after that, it's gone. Today, I feel great. Other than I'm sore from moving all my furniture and all this stuff in my house. I appreciate that.
You don't look good.
Thanks, Brent. Appreciate that.
I worry about your health.
Yeah. But I can say that hopefully next week I should be back, so long as I get the okay and get the negative result back. But if not, we're going to do this again, and we're going to make it happen, and we'll see how that goes.
This time worked a lot better than the last time we did it remotely. Yes,
it did. Yep, and I can say that I think a lot of this is thanks to this StreamYard service. It's been great.
Just for what it's worth, the StreamYard has made it much simpler for an old man like me. Straight into it. I do miss having the studio fully operational.
Yep.
And had Brandon been here to do the back end support. maybe.
Probably would have. Yeah, probably would have.
So, man, it was just too much.
Yeah.
So, one last thing, because I took 2 AIO calls this morning.
Okay. Yes. What happened?
We're seeing issues with voltage and current still.
Yep.
Particularly with DirecTV. Remember, when you're looking at any source device, the next device in line is providing voltage and current backwards down the HDMI cable to provide power to run the HDMI output of the sourcing device. We're seeing issues with cable boxes and DirecTV specifically shutting down on longer or thinner cables. The AIO fixes this by providing its own voltage and current backwards at the source. And typically you put it at the source.
So, Brent, I just had a thought, and everyone who's watching this is it's a small thought, but I had a thought.
That's a start.
This is how this goes, though. We get these random thoughts, and viewers that are still watching, this is how this works. It comes to us randomly like this. We've been dealing with issues with slight over voltages from cable companies for a very long time. Is it also possible that we could be seeing an under voltage problem where or maybe not an under voltage, but an under current problem?
Sure.
Where they are drawing more power than what they should be?
And put on a TV.
Right. So all the people that are out there that are running into problems where their AVR is, they have the cable box plugged into the AVR or the TV, and it kills that input, and so they move it over to the next one, and it kills that input, and move it over to the next one, it kills that input.
Typically not on shorter cables. It'll be on longer cables or active fiber cables.
Right.
And the reason for that is plain and simply, it's just when you're drawing current and current is drawn, voltage is fed, it's pushed. I'm pushing up. Current is drawn.
Right.
If you're trying to draw more than is available, you can do damage to the providing device because it starts to warm up because it's working harder to try to meet your requirements, your needs.
Right. Right.
And as you know from moving furniture today, as the load gets heavier, the supplying source dwindles.
Yes.
So weaker and more sore.
Yeah.
The same thing happens to a TV when an active cable or a source is demanding more current, and it will actually damage the unit. Remember, lift with your legs, not your back. So
what you're saying is I shouldn't be lifting only with my back in a jerking, twisting motion, right?
Well, yes, you should.
So
I want your wife there with the camera going so that we can make some money.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Now, in those situations where...
about your health and your financial well-being.
Well, yes, and I fully understand that, and I appreciate your concern. So when we're looking at problems where it may be an undercurrent or an under voltage problem, putting in an AIO2 essentially could fix that problem because it supplements the power.
It does. However, if the damage is already done,
yes,
do is mitigate it and prolong the life of the device.
Right.
It's like a cancer. If you're drawing too much current, you'll start to get little deformations of the circuit board because it's heating up.
Right.
And it's like a blister on your skin. It starts small and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
And when this happens, the circuit board impedance will change in given areas. And when that happens, then it starts to pull more current and get hotter.
Right.
And then, much like lithium batteries, you wind up with thermal runaway.
Yep.
And it dies.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
So you want to have enough current. You don't want to be in a starvation mode.
No.
Overcurrent still, we can't solve that yet. We're working on it.
Yeah, we're working on it. But in those situations, you may want to put in an AIO2 or even an SP3 or both together.
Stop spikes or surges?
Yes.
It's not going to stop 5.3 volts.
No, but it'll help with the surges if it is a surge. So
yes.
I'm going to start prescribing that as a fix for these situations. Put the cable box in between. So you've got the cable box. Put an SP3 on the output of the cable box. Run to an AIO, and then from the AIO, then go to your TV or your AVR.
Any device with a serial connection, coax, or Ethernet port should have a SP3 on the output, HDMI output of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we are just about an hour into this.
Yep, we'll wrap it up. Next week, come back. We'll do the multi-source distribution.
Multi-zone, multi-source, multi-zone.
Yep, multi-source, multi-zone. And I think we even have a couple other videos coming up as well. I think we have an MOV video coming up for search protection.
I got that one.
Yep, and a couple others for that.
People for us to do interviews with up in the show.
Yes. Yep.
So, there's a lot coming up, and please join us. Tell your friends, your neighbors, subscribe, tell us how awesome we are, and please send money.
Yeah.
We're not, or at least meal tickets.
Yeah. Security vlogger, real quick. He's saying he just finished PTZ camera install for a municipality using RG6, going 2,100 feet on SDI. Yeah, it's possible.
On that, and I would definitely have surge protection on that.
Yeah, put one of those coax surge protectors on there to help with that as well. So cool, very cool. Yeah, that's an awesome install. Well, Brent, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Everybody, as always, thank you so much for watching. Let us know if you have any questions or anything else down in the comment section below. Everyone who's been here for the chat, if you've been talking to us over in the chat over there, thank you so much. If you have any questions about anything else that's going on, please let us know. We always monitor those comments and chats, and we'll get back to you just as quick as we can. In the meantime, I'm Adam.
I'm Brent. Reboot early.
Reboot often.
Turn off CEC.
Don't cut your wires too short.
And call tech support.
Bye, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Have a good one.
Do we get credits today?
Credits for what?
You know, the little.
Oh no, we don't get credits today.
Rolling credits today?
No, I'm just gonna hit the button and then we end it.
I mean, it's Adam Rogers, token old guy Brett McCall, Adam Rogers, Brandon Gadis.
Well, I mean, as you can see, I'm not there, and this is what we're left with. So,
bye.
Bye, everybody.